crafters, welcome back to another segment of KISS. Keep it simple, Sylvia. Today's the last Friday in May, which means that we're going to wind up this segment on glue and also do a recap on everything that we've done so far this month. I think it was week one when we did stencils and masks. I told you that if you didn't like the stencil or the mask that you had just laid down with hot glue, to save the hot glue, don't throw it away, because we were going to use it in a later segment. Well, that's what this segment is all about today, is using up those hot glue bits and pieces that we didn't like rather than throwing them away. What you're going to need for this is you're going to need some kind of a mold, some kind of silicone mold. And I recommend that you get a silicone mold as opposed to like plastic. Plastics are great, but you can't use hot glue on them because the hot glue will melt them. You can get silicone molds in the craft department, or you can actually go to the cooking section and get the little tiny molds that they have. I've got a lot of different silicone molds, so I'm just going to use them. But I find that if you're going to invest the money in them, which they're not that expensive if you go to the cake department, it's well worth the investment of getting the silicone because there's so much more that you can do with it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to begin. I recommended that you had saved any and all of your hot glue that you had made that you didn't like. Well, I've got some here that I had made some molds using some metal pieces that I had, and they didn't work out good for me because the metal piece that I was making the mold from was just way too thin. So it didn't make a deep enough mold using the hot glue to drip around it. And so whatever I put in there would just break apart because it just wasn't deep enough. And that's one thing that if you're into making your own molds from embellishment pieces that you like, make sure that it makes a deep enough mold, because I haven't found anything that's going to work with something that's very, very thin. So rather than throw this piece of hot glue away, I'm just going to cut it up. It cuts up real easily. And I'm just going to put it into my silicone mold here, and it works best if you make little pieces and you don't cut up big pieces, just simply because we're going to be remelting it. And what we're going to be remelting it with is, if you've got a craft gun, you can use that, but what I found works best is the embossing gun, because it heats up higher temperature, which means it melts the glue faster. But the heat gun works okay, it just takes much longer, and I'm pretty impatient. I don't want to wait. And the nice thing about doing this with your leftover hot glue is you can add to it. You can put a layer down, melt it, add another layer of the glue pieces, melt it, and it's going to be seamless. You're not going to see any layers at all, because you remelt the glue as you're doing this, and it just kind of forms into each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a layer down first, get all the pieces that and I'm going to use my embossing gun for this. I like this gun for embossing, and like I said, it gives a much higher heat. And all you do is you just heat it up and melt it, which is what I'm going to do. I'll zoom in so you can see it. And as long as you've got a silicone mold, it doesn't matter. I mean, they're made for baking at high temperatures, so it's going to work real good. Just put something down on your work surface to protect it. I've got a cutting board underneath my craft mat here, just to protect the surface that I'm on, because you are using heat. And you can see that it's melting up nicely, and when it gets nice and melted, it just flows into all the little nooks and crannies in the mold here. It's really good. So I'm going to keep doing this, and I'll be back when I've got it all done. One of the things I really like about this project is you can always you see instantly where you've got void and where you need to put more of your glue. Plus, then you can cut your glue to any size that you need to fill in those little spots that are low. And if you use the embossing gun, because it's got a higher direction of airflow, you can actually see the glue moving around inside your mold, so you can move the glue to any spot that needs it, which I think is kind of cool about this. So I'm going to just finish this up because I dropped some more things on there, and I'll be right back. Another thing I really like about doing it this way is you can always see where there's high and low areas in your mold just by, having the light glance off of it in a direction a certain way. And then that way you know where to add more pieces and you can cut them any size that you want. A lot of times we use these molds when we have a melting pot and some UD flakes, powders, and pour it into here. But a lot of people don't have the melt pot, so an easy way to do it is just use your hot glue and you get almost the same. This will be more pliable because once again it's a silicone base, and so it's going to be more rubbery than what the UD is going to be, which would be a little more rigid. But you can still paint it. You can't ink it. You can't ink with any kind of water-based ink, but you can still paint it or put nail polish on it to achieve any look that you want. I'm going to finish this up right now. And a lot of times just by dropping some tiny glue pieces into your glue, because the glue is so hot, they just start melting. There's not a whole lot that you have to do to finish it up. Okay, I've got it all done, and it's going to be hot. The silicone mold itself is going to be very hot, so you just need to set it aside and just let it dry. And I'll show you some of the other ones that I've made. I made this key, got a lot of detail in the key. This little fleur-de-lis type thing. Here's the key lock. Probably paint that up or do some kind of metallic on it. And then another thing that you can do with your leftover glue is this is a chipboard. I put nail polish on it and I put glue on top of it and melted it, so it gives kind of like an enameled finish to it. It does change the color of the paint underneath, whether it's nail polish or paint or ink or whatever, just because it doesn't dry clear. When you start out, this is what it starts out with like, and it's gonna dry that way. But I think it kind of gives a nice look and certainly a nice feel to the embellishment here. I really like the way that this came out. Cute little heart here. And I actually burnt the nail polish over here on the side, but I actually kind of like it. I think it looks kind of cute. So I'm going to let this continue to set up, and I'll be right back. Okay, crafters, well, I'm still waiting for this to harden. It's almost there, but I can still feel it's just a little bit warm before I pop it out. We'll just do a recap on everything that we've done so far. So the very first week, we actually did stencils and masks, where we just made up stencils. And the masks are the ones I called when we flattened them with the book. And we did that so that we could position them anyway, and then if we used them on jelly plate printing, particularly if we did words, we'd be able to use it in the correct position on the jelly plate, which would be backwards at first. And then we just made up all these different masks and stencils to be used. If you want to use it as a stamp, it's easy enough to do. All you have to do is because it's silicone, you're not going to be able to use ink on it, at least not water-based ink. You could probably use the oil-based and put it on top of here, but paint works real good. Just put some paint down on your craft sheet, smush this in it like that, and then just get a piece of paper and put it down on that, and you've got yourself a stamp. Let's see if I can do that. Hang on. Okay, I got some. Just turn it upside down, press it all over the place. And then there you go, you got a stamp. Now, obviously, that didn't come out real good because I didn't really take my time to make sure everything was covered. But this is the one that I didn't flatten. It's still got the raised edges on it. But any one of these can be used as a stamp. And then the next week, we actually did our own glue dots and a bling. And here's some of the bling that we made by just dropping our hot glue down and then adding nail polish, or you can put glitter on top of it while it was still wet. Here's some more I made, and it works best if you put them on a slick surface like what your frozen foods come on, because nice and slick, so then you can just pop them off when you need them. Made a blingy thing here, and I got some more dots just ready and waiting to go for when I need them. And then for the following week, we did our faux metal, which we used Aleene's tacky glue, and we made ourselves some faux metal pieces, which I think came out just wonderful. I love using this product. And this was the one art canvas that I originally had not added anything other than just leave it the way it was. But I did go over the top of it, you can see, with some paint, and it really brought out the detail, which I think is just gorgeous. And then last week we talked about making our own glue, just our flour, water, and salt. And we used it in several different ways. We put it on journal product paper when we actually thinned it down to act like paper mache. And I used just some water-based inks on these, did some watercoloring on them. I love the texture in it. I don't know if you can really see, but it actually kind of crackled in some spots, and you might be able to see right in there. I love that crackle look. Really, really cool. And then when it was thicker, before we thinned it down, we actually made some molds out of it using our silicone molds. And it just, they came out real good. The detail in this is astounding. And once again, you just have to let them dry. You have to be very careful with them because they are fragile. They're not rubbery like the hot glue is. But the detail is just amazing in them. And then also, I told you that you could actually, instead of doing the hot glue in a mold like we did today, you can actually, while it's in your glue gun, drop it into the mold, and you can make yourself all sorts of cute things out of the hot glue, as opposed to using a melt pot with UD, which is large embossing powder type thing. Make up some real cute little bling to use on projects. And then today we just talked about melting glue, our leftover pieces. Don't ever throw them away because we can always use them. And did this cute little, I really like the way this looks. It's really cute. You can see that some of it pulled away here because I actually punched holes in it, but I can remelt that. Actually, it looks kind of cute. I think it looks like eyeballs. And then this is the one that we just got done with all of our loose pieces, and this is a fan. And I'm just going to pop it out of the mold here. And I hope you can see the detail in this. It's just amazing. Amazing detail in this. Try to get it in the light right so you can see everything here. And probably paint this or do some gilding on it or something. But it sure is a good way to go from a crappy piece of whatever I was making, do it, whether it was a mold or actually using a stencil, that I didn't like the look of it, and I turned it into something that is workable with. And because it is silicone, there's if you have some pieces that are hanging over on your mold and you don't like them, well, you can cut them off and trim it up so it's nice and clean for you. It just cleans up just beautifully. Oh my gosh, I forgot one of the most important things that we did too, was making our own glue dots. And I had recommended that you actually use paper that You got stickers on because it's nice and waxy and coated. It's smooth on one side and waxy on the other. And then you just use Eileen's Tack It Over and Over again, and you can just make your own glue dots. I've used quite a few of the ones that I've made, so I don't have very many left. And you just, like how I folded this over on top of it because it's the waxy side, it actually protects the glue dots and they're not going to get sticky on something else if I accidentally lay something on top of it. Here's some more that I made. I don't know if you can see, but I've used pretty much all the ones that I've made, and they're just wonderful. They're just so easy to make. And then, like on this one, you can see that there's some string. I did some string ones. You can do dots of any sizes, so it just works out real good. It's real handy. The last glue then would be the rubber cement. And we learned how to make a direct-to-paper mask just by painting the rubber cement over whatever it is we want it to make sure it didn't get any more inking or paint on it. And the nice thing about using it as a mask is that it seals completely all the way around the edges, wherever it is that you put it down. Nothing's going to leak underneath it or through it, particularly if you use any of the spray inks like Lindy Stamp Gang inks or Distress inks. Then also watercoloring, if you're into watercolor painting, that's pretty wet too, and if you'd used any other type of mask, it would have leaked underneath it. And then also it's a repositional glue and it's a semi-permanent glue. I say semi-permanent, it's pretty much permanent, but it could with some effort be pulled back off the project. But there you have it. We've reviewed all of our glues this month. Okay, crafters, I hope you enjoyed this segment of KISS for the month of May where we just worked with glue. And I really enjoyed showing you all these simple little projects and getting back to basic. And I hope that you join me again for the month of June where we'll be working on something else. Bye for now, crafters, and thank you so much.